MerMay, HCA. I didn't come up with MerMay. It's like an Instagram hashtag for an art challenge, but I will take any social media hashtag or National Day of as a prompt for what I should make content about, because I don't have any fucking ideas. So MerMay for mermaids. The most famous mermaid story is A Little Mermaid by our favorite Victorian bisexual sad boy, Hans Christian Andersen. So I cede the month of May to him and his tragic love stories. The Little Mermaid, written by Hans Christian Andersen, published in 1937, probably inspired by Undine, a novella published in 1811, with the same kind of mermaid love on land legs kind of story. If you're only familiar with Disney's version, then I highly recommend actually reading Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid. It's all public domain, so you can find it online somewhere. At least read the Wikipedia summary so you know what the deal is. Because, like all of Andersen's stories, it's beautifully written with beautiful descriptive language about the under the sea, land, and so many things. And like all of his stories, it is just full of unrequited love and tragic heartbreak. Ugh, it's so emo. Here are some of my favorite things in Andersen's story that are not in Disney's story. Aside from Who Wants a Happy Ending? That's so boring. When I read Andersen's story after only knowing Disney's version, I was delighted by his sea witch. Although we love Ursula, this sea witch is not really a villain. As far as I can tell, she's just a businesswoman doing her business, okay? She doesn't cut out the Little Mermaid's tongue for some nefarious plan to get her back later. That's just the cost of doing the magic. She's just a businesswoman. She has to take the payment that makes the magic work. So I really think this sea witch character is just begging for her own story, like a retelling or the story from her perspective, because she seems just so neutral. Like, which sounds boring, but I'm like, you could make something more interesting out of it. I might be working on a sea witch story. I just want to know more about like her business, what she's up to. Another part of Andersen's story that I love are the Little Mermaid sisters. They actually come back into the story a couple times because they come to see their sister when she is human and beg her to come back, and are worried about her, and they love her and they want her to come back to the sea, and she doesn't want to. So they go to the sea witch and get magic. Their cost is their hair. So they show up at the end of the story. They pop up into the sea with no hair and a knife, and they're like, look, we did a deal with the sea witch. If you take this knife and stab him and then put his blood all over your legs, you'll turn back into a mermaid if you jump in the sea. Which of course is how I wish the story ended. But it doesn't. She like chickens out. She sees him happy. She doesn't want to hurt him. And it's like so many of Andersen's stories, his characters are often these pathetic creatures or inanimate objects who are just unable to do anything for themselves and just let things happen around them and don't actually do anything to help themselves. Not all of his stories, some of them have protagonists, but she just is like, I can't do it, and just turns back into sea foam. And I can't even get into the weird Christian ending, which E.L. Travers, the author of Mary Poppins, described as blackmail for children. It's so weird. But Andersen's stories do have a lot of Christian themes in them and like specific references to Christian things. That's a whole thing. Many readers and scholars have found the theme of unrequited queer love in this tale. We do know as much as you can know about a historical person and their personal writings. Without him identifying exactly as this, we know Hans Christian Andersen was definitely bisexual. But The Little Mermaid, okay, as a sort of queer allegory, I mean, she wants to fit into a group of people unlike herself. She has great love for someone who cannot understand her love. who treats her like a platonic friend, who would never consider her as a potential romantic sexual partner. I mean, who among us has not fallen for a straight friend? Stings a bit. And, you know, at that time, and even now in certain groups within Christianity, being queer was at odds with being Christian. Like, you could not be both. So Andersen could have written this tale about his inner conflict between his love for men, or one man in particular, I'll get to that, and keeping his Christian beliefs. Would he have to choose between sharing and expressing his love and keeping his soul pure for heaven? Andersen was in love with many people. I think some sort of timeline or a chart relating his real personal relationships to the tales he was writing might be helpful. The Little Mermaid may have been inspired by his love for his friend Edvard Cullen, not Edward Cullen. Andersen wrote to him, "I languish for you as for a pretty Calabrian wench. My sentiments to you are those of a woman. The femininity of my nature and our friendship must remain a mystery." Cullen wrote in his own memoir, "I found myself unable to respond to this love, and this caused the author much suffering." It's better than, "Ew, what are you, gay?" Like, he understood, he just couldn't reciprocate. Unrequited love and feeling out of place are themes in many Andersen stories. In The Snowman, a snowman falls in love from afar with a beautiful iron stove inside a kitchen. A love that could never be, of course. And the snowman melts in the warm spring sun, never having even met his beloved. I mean, is that not the most pathetic fucking thing? And like many queer kids, Andersen must have felt like the ugly duckling until he grew into himself and started expressing his love for others. The titular Snow Queen is said to be inspired by opera singer Jenny Lind, who never reciprocated his affections. But his unrequited affections were not always romantic. Let us not forget the time he visited Charles Dickens and overstayed his welcome by 5 weeks. And he didn't understand that he was unwelcome and was saddened when Dickens ceased their correspondence after he did finally leave. He's a sensitive boy. It's not surprising then that mermaids are a favorite expression of queer and gender nonconforming people. I mean, who doesn't love a drag mermaid? Any mermaid. I mean, the metaphors are abound. We've got feeling like you're from another world, transforming one's body into what feels true to oneself, feeling only half human, longing to escape to another world, etc., etc. And then there's just the aesthetics. We've got shimmering scales and flowy tails and long, flowing, colorful hair and seashell tops. Glitter everywhere. Like unicorns, mermaids seem synonymous with LGBTQ+ expression for all their colorful, transformative meanings. I've shared just a taste of mermaids, but there's so much more to say about mermaids and other marine folkloric creatures, and Hans Christian Andersen's beautiful and tragic stories. I recommend picking up an HCA collection to get to know more of his stories. You've got The Snow Queen, which is nothing like Frozen, but amazing. The Fir Tree will break your heart at Christmas. The Wild Swans is his beautiful version of the Six Swans fairy tale. Andersen solidified the mermaid story as one of longing for love in the human world, but there's so many more stories of aquatic creatures with different relationships to humans. You know, they love them and leave them. They bring them under the water to play. They lend them a helping hand, or they just fucking kill them. So pick up a book or go on a Wikipedia deep dive and explore the global variations of mermaids and similar creatures. There is a water spirit out there for everyone. even sad Victorian bisexuals.